welcome to the Mustafa's Game Room podcast. To my right here for the first time, I have James Cow. Just kidding, you're still under me. And to my right, I've got Jeremy Moore.
Hello.
So today's discussion topic is actually going to be something near and dear to us because we're multiple people and we like video games that we play.
Is that true?
Yes.
There is more than one of us. That's the only thing I can confirm. We're going to talk about multiplayer games, some of the ones we like, and some of the ones we don't like, maybe. Who knows? And by the end of this discussion, hopefully, we'll be able to tell you what makes a multiplayer game a good game. Alright. So,
I'm already stumped. Forget it.
Nobody knows.
I so frequently thought about just hijacking the intro. I'd just be like, you're like 3, 2, like, hey guys, it's James starting the show.
We just have to let you do it.
One of these days I'm gonna do it. Maybe we'll have to be in person.
I mean, I probably hijacked the opening for your radio show. I don't know, like 11 to 12 times. So
it got to the point where we just gave it to you. You just weren't doing a great job.
I'm really good at it. I can't help it. It's my thing.
It's your natural ability. Anyway, multiplayer games, huh?
Yeah.
What about them?
Right.
What's your favorite?
Okay. Let's talk about not what our favorites are. Let's first talk about what are some multiplayer games that the three of us play together with our
Grand Theft Auto Online.
Yes, which recently
that's one game we all play together.
The new DLC, Cunning Stunts. Make sure you say it right.
You gotta be very careful when you say that, or else you say something very bad.
It basically takes the GTA racing and makes it Mario Kart.
Yeah, that's my favorite analogy.
That is what it is.
You told me about the DLC, you were like, yeah, it's just Mario Kart now. And I was like, what?
It's got loop-de-loops, and it's got boost pads.
All the tracks
sometimes
like
it's way up in the air.
Yeah,
they're just crazy. They're so much more fun.
Absolutely. Probably the most fun I've had playing GTA so far.
So why, other than Cunning Stunts, why do we play GTA together?
So we play GTA together because it's one of the few games that the gameplay of it is something that we all enjoy to a certain degree. Because we all have pretty different ideas of what we like in video games. But GTA it's a third-person kind of open-world game with like pretty comfortable controls for all of us. As far as like the main tenets of the game, combat and driving. There's enough variety between the different ways that you can do those two things that each of us find something that they like. Like Mustafa really likes using the motorcycles. That's where he just feels the most comfortable. And when we're in combat, he prefers using like explosives and stuff, like grenades, the rocket launcher and whatnot. I'm a really big fan of just getting one car and putting a lot of money into it and making it like really, really dope. And then I also really like using assault rifles that I trick out to be really good and going it with the traditional cover-based shooter aspect. There's just a little bit in there for everybody.
Yeah, I just like, I think it's got this weird thing. It's almost like what Second Life wanted to be, where people just kind of get on and hang out.
Yeah, absolutely.
In just this world, because it's so massive, you can always just go and explore it. I mean, last time we played, Mustafa bought a boat and we just chilled on his boat for a while.
Yeah, we did hang out on my boat. That was
smashed
awesome.
onto shore and then we all logged off. So yeah, it's just got a good hangout element about it, which I used to have in Halo 3 with my friends in like high school. Was we just hang out in Forge mode, and it would be like getting together, almost like getting together in person and just like playing with Lego, because we just build something together and we wouldn't really like talk about what we were building. We just it would just kind of construct in front of us and we just have a conversation around it. So it's like just kind of something to do while you hang out, and you kind of hang out not in person.
Yeah, for us what started the GTA thing was that we'd all been James had a PlayStation 4 since we knew him, I think, and then I went with Jeremy to get a trifold board from Walmart, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I just bought one while we were there.
Oops, accidentally spent like $400.
Yeah. And then Jeremy got his, and so we all had the same console, which was a first because you guys who follow the blog know I'm like Nintendo head all the way, and Jeremy loves his PC. So all of us getting the same console was kind of a new thing. So we were like, what's a game that we could all play? And that was a very difficult thing to sort of come to because
we tried a lot of stuff.
Oh, we came up with so many ideas. Okay. My favorite one that had all the makings of being awesome, but is just a really bad game, is DC Universe Online. Because
try it.
Oh my goodness, the customization.
I played that a couple of times before with someone else.
The customization and combat in that game had potential. It was like the frameworks of a really awesome idea. Plus, it's in the DC universe where like all the powers and things are really unique and creative. Like, I personally fall a little bit more to DC than Marvel because DC, I feel like, is totally comfortable with being like, there's no nuclear gamma reactor that makes this person the way they are. They're just born on another planet, so they have really cool magic stuff. Like, that's more me because I really like fantasy and whatnot. So it was such an awesome like premise, and then we started playing, and all the geometry in the landscapes and everything was really bad, which was messed up because the game put such a heavy emphasis on mobility. Like, you get to choose from 3 different ways that you want to move. Like, if you're an acrobat, you can climb walls and glide through the air, and if you fly, you can fly, and like other people can have super speed. So they put such an emphasis on running through and exploring the terrain, and then they're so uncomfortable and clunky. Like, I remember I was standing on a satellite, and it felt like I was just standing on a cube that looked like a satellite. So it was really.
It was too MMO-ish.
Well, because it is an MMO. Is the thing. That game is an MMO.
And I just don't. I don't know. I don't do MMOs. I don't like them, especially on console. I guess the closest I got was Destiny, and even still, not a big fan.
I mean, for me, the issue with DC Universe, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, to me it felt like it was trying to be too many different things. Like, and I felt like with...
a lot going on. I was so confused.
And it's also like, this is a DC game, so the audience, when you're going with traditional comic book superheroes, I feel, isn't the same audience that would dedicate, their time and resources into, like, a more traditional MMO. So it felt to me like it was sort of reaching for like this action game element while also trying to be an RPG in a way that could have worked but didn't because it was just bad. I don't know.
Yeah, we were playing it and we were playing the game, we were doing the missions and like running in, and like I also just didn't enjoy the combat. It was like just very boring. It felt like one of those games, like when it came down to it, when you were actually playing it, like yes, there was this huge MMO kind of universe going on around you, but it also just really felt like one of those crappy shovelware games that they put out when like the new like Marvel movie came out, like, oh, get the Thor game as well, get the Transformers game as well, whatever. It felt like one of those and just kind of boring.
I think so. If you look at the combat, right, here's the thing about the combat of DC Universe Online that I think makes it really bad, is that, so if you look at a game like Xenoblade, you have your auto attacks and then you have your arts. Using auto attacks does like chip damage, takes away from an enemy's health, and it builds up your arts, but it's not doing anything too decisive or game changing. Then you use your arts, and the way that you strategically use those, that's what's really going to take away health from the enemy. And so it's a matter of balance between regular moves and special moves. In DC Online, your regular attacks do just about as much damage as your special attacks. They just lack any of the powers or the flashy perks, so there's really no point in using your special moves, so there's no strategy to the combat. But then Dynasty Warriors doesn't have strategy to the combat, it just feels really nice. So it lacks the good feeling of a straight-up action game with no real strategy, but it lacks the actual necessity for strategy that an RPG should have. So, like I said, it's reaching too far in both directions, but it's not actually grabbing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the word for that is a bad game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's really
And
bad.
you know what? Let's move on from it, because that game was just not good. So let's stop talking about it. It's funny. My friends and I back home, everyone's kind of got a working PC now. I say working PC. It's my PC's close enough, I guess. It can run games. It doesn't like to, and it flickers the screen every so often. But
and it really hates the games you make.
Yes, it despises me personally. But yeah, we also had this issue of what game can we play all together now that we kind of all have systems. And the games we landed on were Age of Empires, which we all picked up in the summer sale.
Nice.
For $20. It's awesome.
James, we should play Age of Empires, by the way.
Yes. That game just goes on forever, so that's okay. We tried PlanetSide 2. That game's awesome. Really good on PC. Really cool large-scale battles. But what we ultimately landed on for now is The Forest. I can see The Forest getting boring, but The Forest is a really cool game. It's what every game kind of is these days, but they kind of did it right. It's a crafting-based survival game where you crash land a plane on an island full of cannibals, and you just gotta start surviving right off the bat. It's very, very cool. Lots of crafting, lots of surviving, cutting down trees, harvesting your resources, collecting, gathering, keeping yourself fed and watered. But it's one of those games that's also kind of fun to hang out, because you're just, again, hanging out and building, and the enemies aren't too difficult when there's 3 of you hanging out. So you can kind of just enjoy it and be proud of what you've built and keep exploring the world. So it's very, very entertaining. So I guess that's maybe my big element that we should kind of put on the list of what makes a good multiplayer game, is something worth hanging out and playing for lots of people. Because I guess my big thing that I look for is how can I just keep in
hang with my boys.
Hang with my boys.
Jeremy, welcome to Team Hat. Also, comment on that, James. I think one thing that I've noticed in the way that 3 of us play games is that we really don't, like, even in GTA, we do jobs and missions, but I think that we thrive in an environment where there's a lack of objective when it comes to our multiplayer experience, because of the fact that we just like the sort of hub world, just hanging out approach to the way that we play games. And I think that if you're going to try and enjoy something like that, something that's so crucial and imperative even is that it is scenic, right? Like, visually, the world has to be a place where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And that is why, and I know we've come back to it like 3 times on the show, that is why, despite the fact that it's unlike anything I've ever been interested in, I think Steep is something that I really want to play.
Steep might be it.
Yeah, I feel like, it's about enjoying an actually appealing world with a group of people. So that's the type of game that I'd be interested in. Also, Ghost Recon Wildlands, that was another one that we saw. We talked about it during our E3 post show. That's a game where I feel like if I were to see actual people playing it,
real human beings playing the actual build of the game,
not whatever those robots were, then we might be able to sort of get a grasp for how good that game is. Like, I know it kind of contradicts what I just said, because it is very heavily objective based, but it does sort of have that open world element that I'd be interested in seeing how it plays out. But in the meantime, I can't find the chopper, guys. So
where is it?
Where did I pull my chopper?
Where did I put the chopper? There it is.
I've got him in my sights. We've got company.
We've got company.
If you haven't seen that, go watch it.
Alright, guys, good job.
Good job.
Yeah, that's how I play video games.
Good job.
Race for PvP.
I'm trying to think of another. Oh, here's one that I personally enjoy and that I think a lot of the viewing audience would concur with. Super Smash Brothers, right? So, yes, I think that fighting games are a strong genre, but in terms of the style of multiplayer we're talking with, which is less about the game itself and more about how the game is enjoyed with other people, I think that no fighting game captures that as well as Super Smash Bros., and I think most of the world can agree, right? I mean, the most recent installment has 8-player matches. which is just chaos, even on the largest of maps. And there are items and just it's truly a Nintendo game at its core, right? It's got that Nintendo style of taking a genre and doing everything about it backwards, like what they did with racing games, and for some reason it works. So I think that Super Smash Bros. Is another one that I think has a really strong element of, I suppose, that you're not supposed to take it too seriously. Like, it's got that fun factor to it, right? Where it's not...
It's definitely a game you can whip out in a party.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly good for local multiplayer. I've never tried it online. You can play it online now, right?
Yeah, I personally don't play online very much because... And this is going to sound fun. I don't really like competitive Smash that much. Like, I consider myself pretty good at the game, but I don't see it as... I've never been able to see it as a competitive title for me. That's probably because of the, Mario on the case. I feel like that sort of takes away any ability for me to take a game seriously. Like, I see it as just...
When someone that says it's a Mia is there, and you're like,
good.
I don't know if this is a serious game.
And that's not to say that Smash Bros. Isn't an intricately well-designed fighting game with great controls that could potentially be perceived as a competitive game. I just can't do it. Like, even, like, the Mii fighters, their ridiculous proportions and stupid faces, it's like, come on, like, this is cute and fun, and silly.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be... You're not supposed to throw your controller against the wall.
There's no fun, only winning. You need to get good.
I'll always call Smash Bros. A party game. That's what I describe it as. And I think that kind of accurately depicts what we're talking about as the genre of party games. But I think that we all have sort of differing opinions of what a good party game is as well. So I kind of want to spark up that debate a little bit.
What's a good party game?
Yeah, because I know I personally really like the Mario Party games. And I also like the Jackbox Party Pack. I know that James, for instance, hates Mario Party, and I understand completely why he does. But
I don't like it. Yeah, I tried a few of them, and I'm always really, really bored. And then when the fun part comes,
it lasts for 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
And then it ends.
It's over. And then you're back to rolling dice and just, I don't care. However, like you said, Jackbox Party Pack, perfect. It's all fun all the time. And it's crazy, and anyone can play it. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, I can explain it.
Oh yeah, go.
Jackbox Party Pack, there's 2 of them now. They generally come with about 4 or 5 different games you can play, and they're all run online. And your system, whether it be a PC, I think Xbox or PlayStation, whatever, will just run the game and show you the game, kind of like a game show. And everyone uses their phone to respond. You just log in online, really, really easy. Put in a 4-digit code online, and then you put a name. You can do whatever you want. It can be funny. And then you just either respond to questions, you can do drawings that people vote on in just these various different games. And I have a fairly big family who sees each other all the time, and we always get that out whenever we have people over, because anyone can jump in and play it because it's just so easy.
Yeah.
And it's just so entertaining as well, because you kind of run the game. The humor can be as dark or as light as you want. It's not like Cards Against Humanity or Apples to Apples, where it's one or the other.
Yeah.
You can kind of choose the audience. So when we played at school, it gets pretty freaking low. But when I play it at home, it's a little more lighthearted.
Yeah. But I mean, even sometimes, like, there are jokes, like, it's so versatile, especially Quiplash, which is my favorite Jackbox game, where you're given a prompt and you have to come up with witty responses, and you go head-to-head with someone else, and your group, the spectators, have to vote on who did the best job. And I think it's so creative because, like, with us, sometimes you might go for, like, an obvious answer that's still funny, sometimes you might take it a dark humor route, or sometimes you might just take it off of this weird direction that nobody quite expects. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but one of my favorite ones that I ever did, it was what's a bad name for a pirate? And our friend said like Scurvy McGee or something, and I was like Jason.
That's funny. That's a terrible name for a pirate. That doesn't sound like a pirate at all. Or sometimes, because we spent so much time together, we have such a similar taste that it'll be like I don't remember what the prompt was, but for one, I was up against James, and James put Barack Obama, and I put President Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And I won because it was just a little bit funnier.
Yeah. And arguably the best part about a game, especially like Quiplash, right, is that so the questions are not, or the prompts aren't always based on things like in actuality, so you could even take a dig at a friend. Like I think one time one of the questions was, what's a weird thing to find in someone's glove compartment? And Jeremy said amiibo. And I was like, okay man, cool it. Yeah, so you can really sort of
slain.
You can really sort of like control your group, and I think that you know, that's key. You know, I think James, what you brought up earlier is a really good sort of segue into this idea of the difference between like a physical board game or playing a game with a group of people in a physical space, as opposed to what a multiplayer video game needs to have. Because you noted that you like everyone to be moving at the same time, but in your standard board game that isn't the case. So maybe just for video games, because they're such a heavily interactive medium, waiting does play a different role, right? Egoraptor had said in his Sequelitis video about Ocarina of Time versus Link to the Past, how the combat in Ocarina requires you to dictate your movements based on how the enemy moves. So you spend a lot of time waiting for enemies to do something. And waiting doesn't always translate to gameplay. And regardless of my opinion of Ocarina of Time, which I think is a genuinely good game, it's not my favorite, but I like it. I really enjoyed that perspective, because you know it got me noticing when I play different games how waiting plays such a different role, right? I mean, even in a game like Mario Party, where you're not necessarily just sitting there on someone else's turn, you're trying to watch them so you can sort of maneuver your strategy around that. But even in the more recent games, that strategy element has all but gone away, so there's not really any point in watching your opponents move around, you know?
That's an interesting point. I don't want to bring this to a board game thing, but you can learn a lot from board games.
I mean, we talk board games, they're games.
You take...
I was just going to say...
I don't know what they're called. I want to say like just American games, like classic Monopoly, and then you take Euro games, which is things like Catan, and basically what. Oh jeez, I learned about this so much last year, and it's all slipping away from me. But basically, Euro games took all of the good parts of things like Monopoly. So Monopoly, there's waiting for your turn, and there's one person wins and destroys, and everyone else loses. With a game like Catan, everyone's always playing, trading, and building, and they kind of scrap the whole. Yes, it's not like there's no like you never are not doing anything on your turn, because whenever someone rolls, they're rolling the dice.
You can benefit from it,
but you got to look out because you can get your crops and stuff, and no one's ever out. Everyone's kind of building and building and building, and then someone comes out on top, but everyone's in for the whole time.
I think to speak on that, that's why my favorite tabletop game, and Jeremy, I'd rather you take over once I say the name, that we've all played is Munchkin, because it's sort of got that same idea.
So I'll talk about Munchkin for a little bit, and then I want to talk about a really great tabletop game that's mostly social that I've been playing recently. So the thing about Munchkin that's really great, especially when the person that you're playing it with actually knows all of the rules, because there's a lot of really great rules in there that help keep it totally fair for everybody, that unfortunately I didn't remember the last time James played, so now he doesn't like the game. But Munchkin's really cool because there's a lot of stuff in that game where it'll be someone's round and they do their stuff, like whatever. But you can almost always act during their round. And very often you'll run into a situation where someone will kick open a door and a monster will come out that's way too strong for them. And they need to ask for help from somebody else to get it. And then that's when you start like the real meat of every tabletop game, which is the social interaction. which is where you say, okay, so I need someone with at least 10 attack to help me defeat this. And then everybody offers up, oh, well, I'll help you, but I want 2 treasures. I'll help you, but I only take 1. Oh, yeah, but he's an elf, so don't help him out, because then if he helps you, he'll get a level. Well, shut up, dude. I won't even take any treasures, whatever. I just want the level. It's like, yeah, well, now he's going to get closer. And everyone's arguing about this thing, and you're having this real social interaction, which brings me to my next point. I've been playing this game called Avalon a lot lately, which is very similar to Coup or Resistance, if you've ever played any of those. They require at least 5 people to play, but the basic tenet of the game is that there are good people and there are bad people. The bad people know who the other bad people are, and the good people don't know who anybody is. And usually, everyone just takes turns going on quests, and you have to pick a certain amount of people to go on a quest. So, like, for example, I'm the one picking who's going on a quest. I decide I'm going to go, and I'm going to take Mustafa with me. I don't know if Mustafa's good. I don't know if he's bad. Mustafa doesn't know if I'm good or if I'm bad. And then everyone around the table votes to say if they're cool or not cool with that group of people going, which can, like, drop some subtle hints if they say that they're not cool with it. And then when they go on the quest, both Mustafa and I put down a card face down, totally anonymous, on whether we want the quest to pass or fail. As long as there's one fail in it, it fails. But then everybody at the table knows that somebody that went there was bad. It could be both of us. It could be one of us. It could be Mustafa. It could be me. Who knows? And then that's when you start the arguing. That's when you start trying to look at people, see if people are looking at each other really weirdly, like, oh, well, those two keep making eyes at each other. Maybe they're both the bad guys. And then there's all these additional mechanics into it where for the good guys, there's one person named Merlin, and Merlin knows who the bad people are.
Merlin or Merlin?
Merlin, sorry. But Merlin knows who the bad people are.
Right.
But at the end of the game, if the bad team loses, if they can say who Merlin was, they assassinate him, and then the bad team wins. So Merlin can't tell the people that are on the good side that he's Merlin and that he knows who the bad guys are, because then they'll just lose the game. Because at the end, he'll get killed. Yeah, so there's a lot of of trying to be like, dude, listen to me, like that guy's pretty bad, and then people are like, oh, well, you would say that if you were Merlin, and you're like, I'm totally not Merlin. Shut up, dude. Don't even worry about it. You put those 2 people on, and they were bad. Like you were on 3, and 2 of those failed, so you might be bad. It's one of those great games.
Yeah,
that is.
Because for me, that's when it comes to multiplayer games, I look for incredibly different things. I feel like in video games than I do in tabletop games. And in tabletop games, my favorite thing is the social interaction of those freeform rules. Like an example of why I love playing Dungeons & Dragons so much is because D&D is a framework to literally do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So you're with this group of people that you've been playing with for weeks, and you know what everybody's into, and you just by talking, you just get into whatever organically happens. And that's what I love so much about games like Red Dragon Inn, or Bang, or Munchkin, or Avalon, is that they just these things just kind of organically happen by what's happening with the people that you're sitting next to, by what people are saying and looking at and like touching and trying to like signal to each other and stuff. It's all like these little social cues that you have to pick up on and interact with.
No touching in my board games.
I
don't know what kind of board games you play, Jeremy.
That's another thing.
Board games where you have to sneakily signal to somebody else.
I really like one aspect of all of the games you just mentioned that I think is really cool is the discussion piece. And there are some games that we've played that have even been just centered around discussion. Like I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it. No, it was a different game, and I can't remember the name.
Billy
but yes, I was gonna say because it had literally nothing to do with the subject matter of the game. It's like
that was one of those. That's hardly even a game. It's just like those cards you get to start a conversation.
Yeah, and it's like,
which is fine because, like we said earlier in the discussion, that so often when we're playing a multiplayer game, it's just to hang out.
Yeah, exactly. That game, Billionaire Banshee. Don't know how it got that name, but basically. You have a card, or you get 2 cards, and it's a perk and a quirk describing a person, and you have to put down a card to decide whether you would date or not date that individual, and then all your friends around the table have to also play the card, making their guess as to which of those you would choose. And basically it just triggers a discussion as to what the pros and cons are and why you think that person would behave the way they do. And then when they explain it, it's also really interesting, especially if the quirks are really awful but they still stick with the person. Like, sometimes the quirks are simple things like, oh, I don't know, they can never cut their fingernails or something, but like sometimes they're things like they're already dead. So
yeah, that's one of those really good games. I think we should pull it back to video games, and I have the perfect game to segue it into because it's half video game, half tabletop game, and that's Keep Talking and No One Explodes.
Oh, yes.
That's a good one.
Absolutely.
Who wants to explain that
middle
one?
Ground. I'd
Or I
love
can
to
do
take
it.
that one on.
Please do.
So basically, there is a manual for bomb defusal that you print out, and you basically have that manual with different pages for different types of modules that can be seen on a bomb, and the person defusing the bomb will be facing the computer screen or using the Oculus. I think it's Oculus compatible too, right?
Oh yeah.
Or, yeah.
Oculus Survive, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and they basically, they only have the bomb to look at, and they have the modules, but they can't see the defusal manual. All the other people playing, yeah, it depends on the size of your group, will have the manual, and they will be telling you, well, basically they'll be asking you to describe what you see on your screen, and you basically have to talk them through helping you defuse each module on the bomb. And you get like 3 strikes, and there's this really intense music playing in the background, and sometimes an alarm clock goes off. So it really sets up this tense atmosphere and initiates this really aggressive and like just really like, I don't know, tense conversation trying to get
This
out.
game gets you wired.
It gets you
It just
super
unlocks,
wired.
It unlocks the adrenaline in your body, and if you ever need to just wake up, play this game, and don't play it before bed because it'll take you an hour to get back to sleep.
It was a nightmare.
But you know what?
Love
You
it.
just explaining this game, and I just kind of, because I've been taking notes here, and I thought something interesting is that some games like Avalon, Jeremy, you said, are fun because of the social interaction that comes from the free-form rules. This game is just rules. You have to follow every rule, and that's why it's interesting, and that's why it's enjoyable.
I think that
So
this game is. I think that Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes is a game that, because the way that you play the game, because it's a video game, so it has very strict rules, as video games do, because they're programmed, they're not interpreted. As you play the game more and more, certain people become good at other things, and certain people are less good at certain things. Which means that, like, when you're trying to delegate tasks, you end up with, like, this awesome team dynamic where you know, all right, I'm going to give this task to this person, and that person's really good at this, so I'm going to give it to them, and then we're going to give it back, and everyone feels like they're really doing something. But then you also run into situations where you're the only one that knows how to do something, or somebody's skill level is just not up to your skill level, so you, like, snap at them, or you have like these little like angry dialogues that aren't really that serious.
You're the one who
because
bothered to learn how to do this.
Because it's still just a game. You're not actually upset, but you're yelling in like this joking, semi-serious manner, and it creates like these hilarious stories that you can call back to time and time again. Like when James was freaking out at Brad because he didn't know what a vowel was, or when I was getting so pissed off that nobody knew how to read Morse code.
Yes, Morse code is so hard. Vowels are easy. There's no excuse for not knowing your vowels.
Like I'm still mad. I still feel mad about it. Like I think about it.
If there's a why, we will talk about it.
I think about it and I still get mad. Like that's how good it is, because it has these things that some people just naturally become good at, and other people get naturally good at other things that you end up specializing in ways that you don't expect. Like a lot of times in video games, you make the conscious decision to specialize, whether that be by picking a class or by changing your loadout depending on other people. Like in Helldivers, Brad always does like recon stuff. I always have like the machine gun, but this is all somewhat of a choice. Like, yeah, I enjoy using the mech and the machine gun, but it's also a choice because no one else wants to use it, so I use it so that we have that on the team. But in Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, you don't get benefits one way or another by choosing something. You're just naturally better at doing something than somebody else is because you've practiced it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like in RuneScape, you can cut down as many trees as you want, and get good at cutting trees down. But it feels really, really good to actually like keep practicing this real life task.
Yeah.
Like code breaking, and just be the code breaker guy. Like, oh, there's code breaking, James. That's you. It's like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's
exactly.
also-
Where it's like,
Yes,
James,
it is,
you're
yeah.
really, really quick at this. Here's a
Like,
small
you're
amount of
actually-
information.
You're
you need to
actually
get
good
it.
at something. It's
There's
really,
also
really,
such a heavy element
really
of real life skills that you can gain from these types of things. Like, you know, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes is this rare breed of game where you are literally entirely dependent on somebody else's perception of something that you cannot see in order to get a task done. So you are creating such an incredibly open line of communication, and you're learning how to deal in a situation where you might not always completely get what another person is saying, you know. And you were talking about the team dynamic, and in terms of like a team building exercise, that is incredible. It really shows you the style of how people work. You know, it creates a conversational aspect. So it's really, yeah, that's a very impressive breed of game, and it's rare too, I would say. You know, it's certainly a big deal.
Yeah, Jeremy, you also glossed over something that I wouldn't mind going back to. That appears in lots and lots of games now, especially, is the. Well, I guess I'm just gonna call it squad dynamic. I'm sure it has a real name, but
I like that.
I know in Battlefield, this is a really big thing. Is you choose a class, a characteristic that you go into the game with, being the best at something. And in Bad Company, it was I think medic, assault, engineer, and sniper or recon. And so the assault was good at anti-infantry, the engineer was good at vehicle, anti-tank, whatever. Recon also good at anti-infantry, but sneaking, and just and then the medic was obviously you heal people. You're the opposite of anti-infantry, I guess. And so having teams with as many diverse characteristics in it would definitely be stronger, because everyone's kind of working together, using their specialties when the team needs it most. Makes for some very, very, very fun and very awesome gameplay. And I know Overwatch has this as well, with everyone being so different. So, is there any other games you've seen like that? Do you agree?
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the first possible example of that would be Dungeons and Dragons, which has been around for like 30 plus years now. I've been playing a lot of D&D 5th edition lately, and the amazing thing about any game that has that squad dynamic or that party dynamic is that what I find is that typically in games I gravitate towards traits of characters that I myself either aspire to have or believe that I have. So, for example, in D&D, my character isn't super charismatic, but he can't take anything seriously, and he's always happy to just like have fun and hang out with people. So in combat, like he's a fighter, he's like this big dude, and in combat he's never scared of like anything, and he's always fighting and stuff. And then in like taverns and stuff, it's tricky sometimes to be able to logically get your characters to like the next quest hook. Like there's a shady dude sitting in the bar. Like clearly at metagaming, you're like, there's going to be something cool that leads to talking to this shady dude. He's going to know something awesome, and we're going to kill a vampire, and it's going to be radical. But why the hell would anyone go over there? And it's like, well, you have this stupid fucking not charismatic, fun-loving guy. Of course he's going to want to go talk to him. He's going to want to talk to everybody. And it's like by having that and then having it be like, okay, so in combat, you're really good at taking a lot of hits. You have a lot of utility heal spells. You're the bard. You're going to make sure everybody's like really strong and whatever. You're the cleric. You're going to heal everybody. You're a ranger. You're just going to do damage. Like it makes it so everybody instantly knows what they're going to do. Like I think a perfect example of that is James, me, and our roommate Brad play a lot of Helldivers, and we'll run into situations where it's very tense. We've been in this match for like a good 10-15 minutes, and we're running low on supplies, and we're almost done, and there's monsters everywhere, and we roll up to the objective, and someone needs to run over to the objective and punch a code in and then move around and activate some stuff. So we'll be like, Brad, go over, start activating the whatever. James, drop down a turret. I'm going to bring in my machine gun. I'm going to post up on the north side. James, can you get 2 turrets, one on the east, one on the west? And like everybody immediately just starts going all over the place, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and everything's benefiting everybody else. And that's a really, really strong feeling. That working together with people, because we are innately social creatures, is something that we like to replicate when we're playing.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. You have to have the discussion beforehand, before the combat, with what you're going to do. When everyone gets to see everyone else's like stratagems or what they're going in and specializing with. So one person might pick up a little bit more of a long range weapon. Someone might go with ballistic and ammunition rounds, and someone might go with a shotgun. And so, that calls into question, we need someone who's going to have ammo. How are we going to carry the ammo? What's it going to, like, how much of it do we want? The turrets, like you said, if I had 2 turrets, I have to actually pick 2 turrets beforehand. And you gotta map it out and plan and know what you're going in with.
Which is a lot of fun, surprise.
Yeah. Like just
because that again is just an example of social interaction. Is that like you're having this conversation of, I'll bring this. What do you think you want to bring? Okay, that's great. That means Brad should probably bring this. Brad, do you have those? Like having that conversation, coming up with that plan before you go in, and then the whole time that you're doing it, you're now following through with your plan, and that's a really great feeling.
Like
and it's also about a sense of identity, right? So like that is an element of multiplayer games that is so key. Like, James is known in GTA as the pilot. He is the pilot. He flies.
Yes.
He knows how to fly.
All the time.
He's in charge of that, and I can't imagine. I can imagine that feels really good, right? So you're like, I know I'm the pilot, and with the planes involved.
The moment we had at that heist with me being the pilot and us almost all dying, but not dying.
Yeah,
you got us out of it.
One of my
you're a
favorite
good pilot.
It's like, but I know when cars are going to be chasing us. Everyone's going to say, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to ignore that and blow the cars up. And I take pride in that. I love being the explosives expert. It's a great feeling. Yeah. It's you know what your talents are. And a lot of those talents are reflections of you as a person in real life, right? Like, James, you have a major interest in that sort of thing. I mean, I call you Boatman, but I know that you like planes.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll take boats. I'll pilot anything. I'm the pilot.
Like Jeremy, you're our logical tactician, which I think comes in a lot of ways from your programming background, because you have to look at things in a very logical way. And I mean, even in subtle ways, sort of real traits about you translate to the way you play games. I'm not a very patient person. I play a very aggressive style in almost every game I play. I pick a warrior class in like every RPG. I don't like waiting, So, I mean, I think that in essence is what it's all about. It's about taking your real life skills and being able to apply it to this fictional atmosphere in a group of other people who can acknowledge and appreciate it. That is what makes a multiplayer game good. We did it, guys.
Wow, that's very, very true. I like that a lot.
We done it, boyos. We done it.
You nailed it. I mean, that's not the only thing. I've been writing it all
obviously
down. Come up with some good stuff, though.
There's a game design element to that too, but
yeah, that's true. But if you can design a game that allows all these things, got yourself a good game. What else do we? So here's the things I wrote down in review. We might not be done, but we might be. So hanging out is important for a multiplayer game. Appealing world to explore, maybe. We're getting into it. What else did I have? Okay, and then we got into like kind of party games, things that are easy to pick up. We realized waiting isn't fun. Always being able to participate and contribute. The social interaction, the free-form rules that allow for the social interaction. But then again, also, like we saw in Keep Talking, No One Explodes, sometimes harsh rules that you have to work around. Also call for some interesting gameplay and social interaction. And then identity, like you said, probably my favorite now. It kind of falls under squad dynamics of being diverse and being getting good at stuff, and show who you are by how you play. All big stuff. Damn.
Damn. I love
we did
that.
it, guys.
Great. All right.
Yep.
Let's do game of the week and then close out.
Okay, that sounds fair. Game of the week. I gotta actually pick one.
I got one. So I've been playing a 3DS game lately in my free time because I'm taking a trip down to Delaware soon, and I am on a train, so I want something to kill the time. So I picked up Fantasy Life for the 3DS. I'm playing it on the new Nintendo 3DS XL, but runs on 3DS. It's basically this fantasy setting game. It's pretty like bright and energetic in its tone, where there are like 12 different lives or occupations that you can pick between. Some of them combat oriented, some of them harvesting of resources oriented, and some of them crafting oriented. All with their own like different quests and stuff, and different things that you can do and create and have access to as a result of picking that life, and you can switch freely between them. Where the game really comes in strongly, not only in its main quest line and its dialogue, which is pretty witty and light but not super deep, is that once you hit certain ranks within each life or occupation, you get permanent stat bonuses, and all of the stats influence like your different lives and like your different things. Like for example, strength determines how much damage you do with swords. It also determines how well you can mine and how well you can do, I think, wood cutting. So I picked the mercenary background, which improved my maximum HP, and then it improved my strength. So then I was like, oh cool, with strength I'll also do mining. And then with mining I got that, and I got focus. And then I picked a different class that used focus. And then I went to alchemy, which increased my int. And then I went to being a wizard, which required my int, and also increased something else. And it's like they all kind of affect each other. So you do benefit by trying a little bit of everything. But it feels the most fun to actually just do one thing and stick with it. And the actual like mini games and stuff that you do to craft and get stuff is pretty fun. The combat is actually surprisingly solid. Like I'm a huge stickler for combat in games, and this is actually like pretty good. So all in all, that's what I've been playing lately.
Is it kind of like Fallout where you can eventually do everything, but you don't have to?
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
You have access to all the lives and all the quests and everything like that.
Oh, okay.
Which is a good feeling, because it's like you could play the whole game pretty much just only ever doing one life and get all the way through it, and know that there's a huge amount of content that you didn't interact with that you could have, and you can now go back and interact with that content. And I really like getting through a game and knowing that I missed stuff, because it means that it wasn't just railroaded the whole time. I chose the path that I chose, and I could have gone differently.
Interesting. I don't like that.
You like
that's why I was wondering if you can do anything. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
That's why I like Halo so much, because it's one straight thing.
I hate being railroaded.
I like it.
I cannot stand it. I mean, I like my linear games, but I like to have the option to divert and do. I like having a linear experience that I could do in different ways, almost. Like Xenoblade really does that a lot, the first one, where it's like
That's fair.
The game is very different if you play all the side quests, but if you don't, you can still experience the story in a linear way.
I can see that. I can enjoy that in a different way. I think, like a Battlefield game where I pick my class and I go with that. But then again, if I die, I'll just change it. But that's totally different. I think an RPG game, like when you pick one life for the entire game, that's tough for me. That's why I got 50 hours into Fallout 4 and stopped, I think. So I guess that's just who I am. My game of the week would probably be The Forest. I've been playing that quite a lot. Definitely worth playing if you like surviving, crafting, and a little bit of horror game. There's some dark
some spooky stuff in there.
Yeah. So definitely fun multiplayer game as well. Apparently it's still only an alpha, but it works pretty flawlessly.
It's been an alpha for like 2 years.
Yeah,
I got it
really,
like 2
really
years
long
ago.
time. Yeah, so whatever. They keep updating it. It's really good. So that's mine.
All right. We didn't have the show last week, so I didn't get to talk about it. My game of the week, hands down, is Fury, it's available now on Steam and PS4, and it is so awesome. You're this lightning samurai man breaking out of prison, and there are like 10 levels of this intergalactic prison, and you're just trying to get closer and closer to the Earth. And doesn't that sound awesome already? Like, just in terms of that
it's a good premise.
And like, the boss fights are pretty long, but the combat feels great. You know, and everything feels kind of weighty when you're using your weapons. Not as much as I personally would like, but still enough where it's fun and comfortable combat, and you can like. You really sort of learn patterns, not in a way that feels repetitive, but in a way where, for instance, I played the first through the third boss, and the first and second bosses were really easy, but the third one was really hard. But the lessons that I took from fighting the third one made the fourth and fifth one really easy, but then the sixth one was really hard. You know, so it's like every so often you might pick up a different skill, not so much in-game, but mentally, that really makes the following fights easy, and it makes you pay attention to different things. So, it's a learning game, and it's super fun, I would say. You know, it's definitely worth picking up. If you're a PS Plus subscriber, download it because it's free for us this month. Please, just try it, I'm begging you.
Please do it. Please.
Alright, so that's it. Thank you guys for being on the show. Really loved our discussion today. And thank all of you who tuned in on Twitch, and thank all of you for watching on YouTube. So, yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching, and come back soon for more from The Game Room.